Ladies and gentlemen, the summer break has come and gone. It is time for the Dutch Grand Prix. Welcome back to TL Racing. How are we all doing? It's been a while. I feel awful, so if my energy is a bit low, ignore that. Well, I believe to be the final Dutch GP. We're not going to be going to this circuit again next year. Farewell to Max Verstappen's home track. We have something to talk about. Starting off with this amazing helmet design for Max Verstappen. And speaking of the Red Bulls, Isaac Hadjar will not be participating in this week's race due to a wrist injury, meaning Liam Lawson is taking his seat. It's weird seeing Liam Lawson in a Red Bull again, especially after what happened last year, with Yuki Tsunoda being the second seat in the V-Carb. So I think it's cool. You know, they changed the intro to include the drivers, which I think is nice. Both of these drivers only have one practice session in new cars, like completely different cars. So any placement will be very well for both of these drivers. Talking about practice, we're gonna speed through this with Kimi Antonelli going fastest in the practice session, followed by Lando Norris and George Russell, with both the Ferraris rounding out the top 5. I didn't watch practice. I was at work. I have no notes. I have nothing to say. I completely forgot that it was a sprint weekend, so I was at work when all this happened. But now for the sprint qualifying itself, it was quite interesting. So starting off, Kimi Antonelli went off track during one of the turns. Thankfully, he was able to recover, but that was a major time loss in SQ3, as well as that in SQ1. Fernando Alonso also went off track. But speaking of, let's go for the drivers who started at the bottom, make way up to the top, with Fernando Alonso in last. I do hope one day Fernando will get justice and he will be moved up to a better team if he stays in the sport long enough. Followed by both the Cadillacs with Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas. Lance Stroll out qualifying Alonso. Then followed by Carlos Sainz in 18th and Oliver Behrman rounding out SQ1. Moving up, we have Alexander Albon. Both of the Williams being out. Followed by Esteban Ocon, the Haas, Nico Hülkenberg, Franco Colapinto, Yuki Tsunoda, and Liam Lawson. But I will say, quite good driving from these two, so I'm very looking forward to see how they do in the sprint and how they do in the race itself. And then for the top 10, Arvid Lindblad just squeezing his way into the top 10, followed by Gabriel Bortoleto, Pierre Gasly, Lewis Hamilton down in 7th with Max Verstappen in 6th. Kimi Antonelli unfortunately finds himself in 5th, so, you know, I mean, maybe Kimi is struggling, with Oscar Piastri getting 4th. Charles Leclerc gets top 3, followed by, unfortunately, Lando Norris, and George Russell gets sprint pole. So I am so excited to see how this goes. What do you guys think of the qualifying and the practice? Let's move on to the sprint itself. And ladies and gentlemen, we just had the sprint, and while nothing much really happened, I guess we can talk about the order. So yes, George Russell wins the Dutch sprint race with an amazing drive from Russell. Let's start at the bottom and make way up to the top, and as we go we'll talk about little things that happened. So Nico Hülkenberg had a bit of a bad time having to retire his car, then being brought back out, but being 17 laps down. Sergio Perez also going to have the same, retiring but then being sent back out. He was only 3 laps down, with Carlos Sainz and Valtteri Bottas both being 1 lap down. We have both the Aston Martins with Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll in P18 and P17, with Alexander Albon in 16, followed by both the Haas with Oliver Behrman and Esteban Ocon. Yuki Tsunoda getting 13, which, I mean, for a driver who basically hasn't drove these new cars, this is the first time driving in these regulations. I guess that's not too bad. I'll be interested to see how Yuki and Lawson do tomorrow with the race. You already know what time you're watching this. With Franco Colapinto in 12th and Liam Lawson in 11th. So yes, of course, no points until the top 8. So even if Lawson did get that extra position, it wouldn't have mattered. But moving up to the top 10, we have Arvid Lindblad and Gabriel Bortoleto, both of them missing out on the point, with Pierre Gasly sneaking in 1 point for Alpine, followed by Lewis Hamilton in 7th, which not a great drive for Hamilton, with once again Max Verstappen in 6th. I mean, as we know, Max Verstappen has extended his contract until 2030 with Red Bull Racing, so things have to be better next year. That would have to been a huge deal, with Oscar Piastri getting 5th and Kimi Antonelli so close to getting a podium. I feel like if Kimi had 1 more lap, he would have gotten a podium, and those 5 points will definitely help his championship lead, which unfortunately means Lando Norris just about got a podium, for him losing a place to 2nd, who is Charles Leclerc. An amazing move from Charles, I will say. He did absolutely amazing. And as you mentioned, George Russell wins, starting at pole, leading all the way to the end. This gives me good hopes for the race itself. Just a reminder, Kimi Antonelli is 56 points ahead of George Russell as of this sprint race, which it is possible for George to come back. And I think if George does well during the race, he definitely will get his second place back in the Drivers' Championship. But I guess let's go on to the qualifying. And there it was, the Dutch qualifying. I guess let's not waste any time. Let's start off at the bottom and make our way up to the top of the drivers eliminated in Q1. Starting with both of the Cadillacs with Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, followed by Oliver Behrman in the Haas, both of the Aston Martins with Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, and unfortunately to see Carlos Sainz just missing the point to cross into SQ2. But unfortunately, Williams' luck ended there. In SQ2, we have Alexander Albon, Esteban Ocon, Franco Colapinto, Nico Hülkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda. So, unfortunate to see, but I guess he's done very well for what he's been given, and Pierre Gasly. And I'm moving into the top 10. Arvid Lindblad just making his way into SQ3, getting himself a 10th place start, followed by Gabriel Bortoletto and both of the Red Bulls with Liam Lawson, followed by Max Verstappen. Very, very strange seeing Max not doing quite well, especially on its home race. Followed by both of the Ferraris with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, with Oscar Piastri making his way into 4th place. Kimi Antonelli gets to a 3-2 in the qualifying for Mercedes, with George Russell in 2nd. For a moment, it looked like Kimi was going to get pole position. He actually did get faster than Lando Norris, but unfortunately, Lando came through with the final blow, getting himself pole position for the race tomorrow. So overall, a very interesting qualifying session. Nothing I would say was really too interesting. I know George Russell did kind of lock up and go off track. It wasn't major, but that might have costed him some time. So there it was. There was the qualifying. I hope I'm not rushing through this too much. I'm still kind of trying to figure out the pacings of these videos. And that was the Dutch GP has come and gone for the last time. Starting with the DNFs, we had a lot with Max Verstappen having a very, very unfortunate crash, slipping on the white line and just going straight into the wall. A very scary crash, I will say, and something not really expected from the likes of Max Verstappen. As well as that, Oliver Behrman had an engine failure, his car had completely shut off. Lance Stroll, Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, and Alexander Albon after a bit of a clash between both of the Williams drivers. For our 2 lap down drivers, we have Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, with Franco Colapinto also getting a 10-second time penalty, which is why he is so low down. And also he did get a drive-through penalty, so 2 sets of penalties, which is why he didn't do as well as probably people were hoping for. Bortoletto, who had a bit of a spin during Max's crash, but technically he was able to recover. Both of the Audis nearly collided during it though. What I will say is the race did get red flagged, so for about 10-15 minutes the race did stop. With both of the racing bulls, with Arvid Lindblad and Yuki Tsunoda, with Lindblad also getting a drive-through penalty, and Pierre Gasly getting his 1 point in the top 10, with Fernando Alonso getting himself 2 points. Crazy to see Fernando Alonso actually doing well, getting himself into top 10, with Nico Hülkenberg in 8, Liam Lawson, who also got a 10-second time penalty, and Oscar Piastri in 6th. Now for the top 5, we have both of the Ferraris, with Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. And in our podium, 2-3 for Mercedes, George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. There was a bit of backlash where George had to give the place to Kimi. They swapped positions, which people weren't happy about. And unfortunately, very undeserved, Lando Norris gets first. Kimi should have won, but hey, what do I know? Overall, a very interesting race with a bunch of things happening. It was very interesting. Some highs, some lows. What do you guys think of the Dutch GP leaving the calendar next year? I've not been a fan of the sport long enough to have memories of this track, but I want to know from people like you. Maybe you've been watching for years. How do you feel about this? And what did you guys think of the race itself? That was a very good race weekend, and we are finally back after the summer break. Now, next up is the Italian GP in 2 weeks' time. We are getting to the end of the season. It's kind of crazy to think that we're nearly in September. Just a reminder, for the top 5 in the championship standings, we have Kimi Antonelli very comfortably in 1st. George Russell, who is tied for 3rd place with Lewis Hamilton, with both George and Lewis having 183 points. Lando is now in 4th, only 4 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. But let's be real, he's not going to be getting any further in the championship anytime soon. So we're going to end it there. Thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad to be back. What did you guys think? And did you miss F1 during the summer break? I actually did have an F1 video planned, but I never released it. But it's good to be back, and we're going to be going back to these race reviews. So thank you all so much for watching. If you're new, please do subscribe, patience, hit the bell, subscribe to TL Racing, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at TL Racing F1. Check out the other videos if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.